Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Stanley Maphosa, and I come to you this morning through my program that I call Leadership Lessons with Dr. Stanley Maphosa. And we will be discussing today the fourth pitfall of not doing things the way they should be done in leadership or in organizations. If you have been following these leadership lessons, you should have been able to follow the three other pitfalls. If you have not, please go to my YouTube channel and check these videos, because for me it's critical for us to be able to look at these pitfalls and be able to move over them so that we're able to get things done in our organizations. So I'll not go back to those three, but we'll move straight into this pitfall, which in order for you to avoid, you need to get real about what you are trying to get done. If you have chosen your goals very well and you've articulated your future state effectively, you and your team should be excited about what you are trying to achieve. That is a great thing, because enthusiasm and excitement are motivational in their own right, but they can also bring unrealistic issues, because the more sometimes you get enthusiastic and you get more excited, you begin to lose some details in the process. While you yield great productivity, but you really get some little bit of unrealistic issues in that excitement. People forget that people are human, and they forget also that people are not performing at their peak all the time. Maybe because of age, because of experience, because of other things that are happening in their lives. There are fluctuations in terms of the performance of individuals. There are also what is called unseen circumstances or unseen events that may come through at any time during your project or during your organization's lifetime that you need to be able to look into. That can cause you to deviate on your plans, and things may start to go a different way than what you had planned for them to go. However, you need to remember that seeing possibilities is not being just optimistic, but it is a balance between being clear-eyed realism on the current side and the ability to see better for the future. In our excitement, though, we often build our leadership framework around the best case scenario. We always think that things will always turn out the best in everything that we do. We assume that everything will go right, especially for the first time, and that our teammates or our employees and customers will always understand what we are trying to do and get excited in the process as well. And you will also sometimes think that what we are doing will cost the same. The budget will always be the same. And we also forget that there will be something called resistance, which we're going to look at a little bit today. So it is great that you achieve the best, and it is also great that you can count on what you achieve. You cannot build your whole plan around the best case scenario. As I said earlier, you need to be clear-eyed about what is most likely to happen, and you prepare for what is called the worst case scenario. The most common setback is that you need to account for resistance. And the best case is that everyone gets on board for the first time, but the most likely is that there will be people that will be resistant of your plans and your goal. And that resistance will require more time and more energy to be able to deal with it. In some cases, people deal with resistance for the whole year. And in the process, their plans get to be derailed. And it is very, very critical to understand that. If you expect that you are going to have resistance, you must plan for it And you need also to identify who is likely to be a resistor of your plans in your organization. And therefore, you develop a plan that will work through that particular resistance. So the first thing is resistance. So you must know that every change has people that are called resistors. So I'll leave that one and go to the next one, which is called roadblocks. You need to plan for roadblocks. All of us that are traveling, we have met roadblocks on the road, and they delay you, they stop you, they frustrate you. I've seen some people who know that there's a roadblock on the way, take detours and take some roads that run away from the roadblock, because they know they are going to be stopped, they are going to be searched, they are going to be inconvenienced. So in the journey of life, in the journey of goal setting, you must plan for roadblocks, which will delay your timeline. Once again, in the best case scenario, people do everything right in the first time and one time. But most case scenario is not perfect for the first time. Mistake occur when we are doing something different. There is part of the package in that there are mistakes in everything that you are trying to do. Things will get to be redone. Things will get to be restarted. Things will get to be modified and revised when you are doing things. When you are planning for the most likely scenario, make sure you build in time and slack on all those things. After that, the third thing that you need to do is to build your leadership framework on a particular goal. If you have a particular goal that you are following, you need then to build what is called the leadership framework. You need to pressure test your framework. You need to identify where the issues might rise and think about who might ask for help in the pressure testing process. You do not have to do this alone. In fact, you should do this with others. You should not do it alone. Most people underestimate the degree of difficulty and the time that is required to do things effectively. And that's human nature. When you are planning and you are writing down something, you think when you really start to do those things, it will be as easy as you are writing them, and you underestimate the difficulty as well as the time that is required to do things effectively. We all want to think about the best case scenario, but setting the right expectations is critical. You want to be able to celebrate your success with your team, and if you always set expectations around the best case scenario, you'll almost always fail. The going will get tough. And instead of rallying when the going gets tough, instead of celebrating all that you have achieved and preparing to weather the storm, you and your team will sometimes feel disappointed, disillusioned, and frustrated. Like sometimes you will want to quit. Over time, that disappointment and frustration wears people down. So you have to set expectations right so that your goals are reasonable and achievable, so that you have something to celebrate when the most likely scenario comes to pass. And while you may hope for the best and plan for the most likely scenario case, you always have to be prepared for the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario occurs because you cannot control everything. When you are planning to do a project, when you are following your dreams, you really cannot control everything. Sometimes there are weather elements, sometimes there are political elements, sometimes there are economic elements, sometimes there are people elements, and all that. You cannot prepare explicitly for everything because you cannot predict everything. However, you can plan on how you will respond if something happens. And you will fail if you don't do that. The worst case scenario occurs because something that we did not anticipate to happen starts to happen. When we are facing these setbacks, a good leader pauses. A good leader reflects on the lessons that have been learned, and a good leader recommits to achieving their goals. Let me repeat that. A good leader when a setback happens, when you want to be realistic, you pause, you stop a bit and say, what can we do now? Not just continue doing. And you reflect with your team, what are the lessons that we have learned in this particular program or in this particular project? And you start to recommit on achieving your goals. Although that achievement may take more time and more effort, but it's better than just moving on using unrealistic targets and unrealistic means of pursuing your project. You also need to level your team about what are the setbacks. You have to discuss with your team, get your input from your teams, get your ideas from your teams, so that you understand what were the setbacks in the operational space where the rubber is meeting the road. Because most of the time this planning at leadership level happens at strategic level, and the people that are going to implement may not be there. So when there is a setback, realistic leaders go back to their teams and find out what were the setbacks, why did they occur, and what needs to be happening in order to recover from where the setback happened. We don't need to sugarcoat some of these things. We don't need to just look good on paper for the sake of looking good. These days we have the online platform. There are people that are looking so good on the online platform. But the reality of the matter is there is nothing much that's being achieved. So as a leader, as I'm speaking to you, you don't need to sugarcoat some of these things. You also don't need to run away from reality. You don't need to put on a particular face and run away from reality when things are not happening as they should. But you need to face them head on and move forward. Face the issues head on and move forward. And that's exactly my message to you today, that we need to be realistic if we are going to move forward in leadership and do things better. Thank you so much for listening. I would like you to like the channel. I would like you to share it with others, please, so that others can learn from this. And I'd like you to comment on these issues and be able to also share with others that are not receiving this. But also click the notification button so that each time we are online, you know we are online and you can be able to follow us. Thank you.